Truckers don't just haul cargo. They haul memories of things they wish they'd never seen. Empty highways at 3 a.m., rest stops where no one answers, and miles of darkness where help doesn't exist. Welcome to Mr. Darkveil Horror Stories, where we go deeper, darker, and longer than ordinary horror. Tonight's episode brings you true trucker horror stories. Experiences shared by drivers who learn the road doesn't just take lives, it remembers them. If you're ready for long, relentless true horror, subscribe and stay with me, because once you hear these stories, the highway will never feel empty again. Story 1. Long-haul driving teaches you how to live inside your own head. Hours bleed together. Miles lose meaning. You stop thinking in terms of places and start thinking in terms of sounds. The engine note, the wind around the cab, the low electrical hum of the dash. You learn exactly how the truck feels when everything is normal, which is why I noticed the seatbelt. It wasn't dramatic at first, just wrong. I was running an overnight haul through the Midwest, one of those stretches of highway where towns are so far apart that radio stations fade in and out like ghosts. It was late, after 1 a.m., the hour when your eyes start lying to you, and your brain drifts even when you swear you're alert. The cab was quiet except for the tires and the engine. The road ahead was empty. No headlights in the mirrors. No taillights in the distance. I glanced to my right. The passenger side seatbelt was hanging loose. The metal tongue dangled near the floor, swaying gently with the vibration of the truck. I frowned. I knew I'd buckled it. Every trucker does it. Passenger seatbelt chime kicks in if there's enough weight shift or vibration, so you buckle it and forget about it. I'd done it earlier in the night right after fueling. I remembered the click. I reached over and pulled the belt up. "Fine," I muttered, clicking it back into place. The warning light went out. The chime stayed silent. I drove on. About 20 minutes later, the alarm went off. That sharp, insistent ding-ding-ding that drills straight into your skull. I jumped, adrenaline spiking. "No way," I said aloud. I looked over. The passenger seatbelt was buckled. Fully seated, tight. The warning icon blinked anyway. I stared at it longer than I should have. Then the chime stopped on its own. No warning light, no alarm, everything back to normal. I shook my head, annoyed more than scared. "Electrical gremlin," I said, "that's all." But then I smelled it. Wet fabric, like clothes left too long in a washing machine. Underneath that, something older, sharp, sweet, clinging, cologne, the kind older men wear, heavy, dated, persistent. My stomach tightened. The cab was sealed, windows up, no leaks, no spills. I hadn't picked up anyone. I hadn't stopped anywhere since the fuel station. I rolled down my window anyway, letting cold night air rush in. The smell faded, but didn't disappear. It lingered faintly, trapped in the upholstery. I kept my eyes forward. Didn't look at the seat, didn't want to. The road stretched on endlessly. White lines flicking past like a metronome. The radio had dropped to static, so I shut it off. Silence filled the cab. Too complete. I became acutely aware of how much space there was beside me. The passenger seat wasn't just empty. It felt occupied, the way a room feels after someone leaves, but you can still sense where they were standing. My eyes drifted right despite myself. The seat was empty. Seatbelt still buckled. Pulled, tight across nothing. I swallowed. "Get a grip," I said quietly. "Fatigue does things to you. Hallucinations, smells, sounds. I'd heard stories." I tightened my grip on the wheel and focused on the road. Somewhere around 2:10 a.m., my memory skips. There's no better way to say it. One moment I was passing a mile marker, the next I was passing another one 40 miles later. No sense of time passing. No recollection of driving through it. Just an abrupt awareness that something was missing. My hands were still on the wheel. The truck was still centered in the lane. Speed steady. Cruise control unchanged. I felt cold and tired in a way that went deeper than sleepiness. I checked the clock. It hadn't jumped. Time had passed normally. I hadn't. My heart began to race. I reached for my thermos and took a long drink of coffee, hands shaking slightly. That's when I realized something else. The seatbelt alarm hadn't gone off again. It was silent, because the seatbelt was still buckled. And now, it was pulled tighter. The fabric pressed into the seat cushion as if something had leaned back against it. I didn't turn my head. I couldn't. The smell was stronger now. Wet clothing, old cologne, and something else beneath it. Cold, like air pulled from a basement. I drove another 10 minutes like that, staring forward, muscles locked, refusing to acknowledge the space beside me. Every instinct screamed that if I looked, something would change. Finally, I forced myself to glance right. The seat was empty, no body, no outline. But the seatbelt was indented, fabric pressed inward as if it had been worn for a long time. And the seat cushion was slightly compressed, as if someone had been sitting there. I reached out slowly and pressed my fingers into the cushion. It was cold. Not just hasn't been used cold. Cold like it had absorbed something and was holding on to it. I jerked my hand back. "Nope," I whispered. I told myself I'd pull over at the next rest area, get out, walk it off, reset my brain. The next rest area sign came and went. I don't remember passing it. The next thing I remember clearly is the truck slowing. I hadn't touched the brake. Cruise control disengaged on its own. My speed dropped 10 miles per hour. My foot hovered uncertainly. "What are you doing?" I said, my voice shaking now. The truck slowed further. I pressed the accelerator. It responded sluggishly like something was resisting. Then, the passenger seatbelt alarm went off again, loud, insistent. I snapped my head to the side. The seatbelt was unbuckled, hanging loose, swaying gently. The smell surged. I slammed on the brakes and pulled onto the shoulder, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The truck shuddered to a stop. I sat there breathing hard, staring at the empty seat. "Get out," I said. "Whatever you are, get out." Silence, no response, no movement. I reached for my phone, no signal. Just like that, dread settled fully into my chest. I remembered the dash cam. Company installed. Always recording. I reached up with trembling hands and flipped the screen toward me. The footage showed the cab from behind. Me driving, hands steady, eyes forward, and beside me. A shape, upright, humanoid, sitting in the passenger seat. It had no clear face, just darkness where features should have been. Its posture was relaxed, almost casual, like it belonged there. The timestamp rolled, minute after minute. For 42 minutes, it sat beside me, not moving, not interacting, just present. And I didn't react. I didn't turn my head. I didn't flinch. I drove as if nothing was there. The footage ended abruptly, static, swallowing the image. I dropped the phone. My breath came in short, broken gasps. "I don't remember you," I whispered. The cab felt suddenly empty, oppressively so. The smell faded, the seatbelt lay slack. I waited, 5 minutes, 10, nothing happened. I restarted the truck. The engine roared back to life. No alarms, no resistance. I drove the rest of the night in silence, stopping only when dawn finally bled into the sky. At the terminal, I reviewed the footage again. That segment was gone. Deleted, corrupted. Company IT said the file must have failed during transmission. They shrugged it off. I didn't. I stopped buckling the passenger seatbelt after that. Let the chime scream if it wanted to, because whatever sat beside me didn't need a reason to be there. It didn't ask. It didn't announce itself, it just rode. And here's the part I don't put in reports. The part I don't tell other drivers. Sometimes late at night when the cab is quiet and the road stretches on too long, I catch a whiff of that smell again. Wet fabric, old cologne, and my passenger seat feels warm. I never look, because I learned something on that drive. Some passengers don't exit, they just wait until you notice they're gone. And by then, they've already ridden far enough with you to know exactly how to come back. Story 2. Long-haul trucking teaches you to notice patterns. You notice which exits have decent coffee, which stretches of road make your eyes heavy, which mile markers mean you're close enough to relax but not close enough to stop paying attention. You also notice the things that don't change, because highways are creatures of habit. That's why mile marker 217 stood out. At first, it didn't scare me. It barely registered as anything more than a detail. Just something my brain filed away the way it does with billboards or oddly shaped trees. But highways remember things, and sometimes they remember you. I ran that route 5 nights a week. Midwest freight, mostly medical supplies and packaged food. Long straight stretches. Sparse traffic after midnight. The kind of drive where you can go an hour without seeing another set of headlights. The first time I saw him was just after 1 a.m. I remember because I'd just passed a rest area sign and was debating whether to stop or push another 100 miles. The road was dry, the weather clear, moonlight reflecting faintly off the asphalt. That's when my headlights swept over the shoulder near mile marker 217. There was a man standing there. Not walking, not hitchhiking, just standing. He was a few feet back from the white line, positioned carefully, like he understood exactly where the shoulder ended. He faced the road, body square, hands at his sides. I slowed instinctively. Trucker reflex. You see a person on the shoulder at night, you slow, you scan, you prepare for movement. But he didn't move, didn't raise a thumb, didn't wave, didn't even turn his head. He just watched my truck pass. I remember thinking how odd his posture was. Too straight, too balanced, like someone posing for a photograph. His clothes looked outdated too. Dark jacket, light shirt beneath it, loose-fitting pants that caught the light strangely. By the time I passed him, he was already gone from my mirrors. I shrugged it off. People do strange things on highways. The second night I saw him again. Same place, same posture, same clothes. Mile marker 217. This time, I knew something was off immediately. You don't see the same pedestrian on a rural highway at the same hour 2 nights in a row unless something's wrong. I slowed more noticeably, checking the shoulder ahead and behind him. No car, no broken down vehicle, no bike, no footprints in the dirt shoulder that I could see in passing. I considered stopping, but something about the way he stood kept me from doing it. He wasn't asking for help, he wasn't stranded, he was waiting, and not for me to stop, for me to notice. I passed him again. He didn't react, didn't even blink. By the 4th night, I dreaded that stretch of road. I told myself it was coincidence. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe he walked late at night. Maybe he liked standing there for some reason that made sense to him. But everything about it defied logic. No reflective gear, no flashlight, no movement. Just a man standing inches from traffic, night after night, risking his life for no visible reason. I tried to convince myself I was exaggerating how similar he looked. People have similar clothes, similar builds. But the truth was harder to ignore. He was identical every time. Same jacket wrinkles, same tilt of the shoulders, same angle of the head, like he'd been paused and placed there. The fifth night, I slowed to nearly 20 miles an hour as I approached mile marker 217. My hands were sweaty on the wheel. I rolled down my window slightly, half expecting him to call out. He didn't. As my headlights hit him, I noticed something new. His face. It wasn't blank. It was attentive. Eyes fixed on me, unblinking, tracking my truck as I passed. Not aggressive, not pleading, evaluating. I didn't stop, I couldn't explain why, but I knew stopping was the wrong choice. The sixth night is when he acknowledged me. I saw him before the mile marker this time, recognized the shape immediately. My chest tightened. As I passed, he turned his head, slowly, deliberately, and his lips moved. I couldn't hear him. The cab was sealed, engine roaring, wind rushing past. But I knew what he said because he mouthed it clearly. "You didn't stop last time either." My heart slammed so hard it made me lightheaded. I glanced in the mirror. He stood facing away now, head still slightly turned, watching my taillights disappear. I drove another 10 miles before I realized I was shaking. I pulled over and sat there breathing until the world felt solid again. "You're tired," I told myself. Your brain filled in the words, but I knew it hadn't because the implication was impossible. I had never stopped. Not once. The next day, I asked around. Truck stops are gossip hubs. Someone always knows something. I asked an older driver about pedestrians on that stretch. He frowned. "Mile 217, he said. "You don't stop there." "Why?" He hesitated, then shrugged. "Bad spot. Been a bad spot a long time." That wasn't enough, so I dug deeper. That night, instead of driving straight through, I pulled over before the marker and walked back along the shoulder with a flashlight. The air felt heavier there. Not colder, just dense, like sound didn't want to travel. I found the marker. The ground around it looked undisturbed. No scuff marks, no footprints. But further back, near the ditch, something caught my light. A faded stain on the grass, dark, old. I stood there longer than I should have. Every instinct told me to leave. I did. I looked it up the next morning. Accident reports aren't hard to find if you know where to look. It took some digging, but I found it. A pedestrian struck by a truck late at night. Rural highway, low visibility, driver never stopped. No witnesses. The pedestrian died at the scene. The driver was never identified. Location, mile marker, 217. The report included a grainy photo taken after dawn. The body lay on the shoulder. Dark jacket, light shirt, loose-fitting pants, the same clothes. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. I took a different route the next night. Added nearly an hour to my drive. Didn't care. For 2 weeks, I avoided that stretch completely. Then dispatch messed up. Route auto-assigned, same highway, same marker. I considered refusing the load, but something compelled me to go. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted proof. The night was clear again, moon high, road empty. As I approached mile marker 217, my pulse thundered in my ears. He was there, of course he was. Same place, same stance. This time, I slowed to a crawl. Rolled down my window fully. Cold air rushed in. He turned his head before I even reached him. Our eyes met. Up close, his face looked wrong. Not decayed, not injured, just unfinished. Like details had been smoothed away. "You still don't stop," he said. His voice was quiet, not angry, not accusing, just factual. "I can't," I replied, surprised my voice worked at all. He nodded. "I know." "Why are you here?" I asked. He looked past me, down the road behind my truck. "Waiting," he said. "For what?" He looked back at me. "For someone who will." I drove away then, didn't look back, didn't check my mirrors. I rerouted permanently the next morning. Took the pay cut, lost the miles, didn't care, because I understood something finally. He wasn't haunting the road. He was anchored to it, bound to a moment that never resolved, and every truck that passed without stopping, every set of headlights that chose distance over responsibility, reinforced that moment. I don't drive past mile marker 217 anymore, but sometimes late at night when I'm half asleep and the road stretches too long, I think about him, still standing there, still watching, still waiting. And I know one thing for certain. If someone ever does stop, they won't be leaving alone. Story 3. Truckers get used to voices. Engines talk, tires talk, wind talks, radios talk when they shouldn't. After enough miles, your brain learns to sort real sounds from meaningless noise. Static becomes background. You stop reacting to every crackle. That's why the CB caught my attention immediately. It wasn't static. It was intentional. I was running a solo overnight haul through a stretch of highway most drivers avoid after dark. Too long, too empty, too many dead zones. The CB stayed quiet out there unless someone was breaking down or getting bored enough to talk to themselves. I kept mine on anyway. Old habit. It was just past 12:30 a.m. when the radio crackled. Not loudly, not urgently, just enough to break the rhythm of the drive. I glanced at the channel. Channel 19 was quiet. The sound came from an unused channel, one I hadn't touched in years. Then a voice whispered, "Low, close. 39.7421 north, 104.9903 west, over." The whisper sent a chill through me. Not because of what it said, but because of how it said it. No accent, no emotion, no radio distortion. Clean, intimate. Like someone leaning toward a microphone they didn't need. I frowned and checked the CB. The signal strength needle didn't move. No transmission indicator. That shouldn't be possible. I waited. Nothing. Maybe bleed through, I told myself. Skip. Atmospheric nonsense. Then the voice came again. 39.7421 north, 104.99903 west, over. I swallowed. Those numbers felt familiar in a way I didn't like. I reached for my phone and pulled up GPS. Entered the coordinates. My stomach dropped. They matched the road I was on, not a nearby town, not an intersection. The exact stretch of a highway beneath my tires, my speed, my direction, my position. I stared at the screen, pulse pounding. "That's not funny," I said aloud, though I was alone. The radio stayed silent. I reached up and shut the CB off completely. The cab returned to its usual sounds. Engine, wind, tires. I exhaled slowly. Then I heard it. "Over." The word didn't come from the speaker. It came from inside the cab, behind the seat. Quiet, clear, too close. I froze. Every muscle locked in place, hands clenched around the wheel. My eyes stayed forward. I didn't turn, didn't breathe. The voice spoke again. Same whisper, same cadence. "Truck number 48832. Over." My throat went dry. That was my truck. Company assigned, painted on the door. Not something a stranger could guess. I forced myself to speak. "Who's there?" Silence. Then, "Michael Aaron Lewis." Over. My full name, not a nickname, not a handle, my legal name, the one on my license, the one no one used on the radio. The cab felt smaller instantly. Walls closing in, air thick and stale. I could smell something faint behind me. Dust, old fabric, like the inside of a long-closed vehicle. I turned my head slowly. Nothing. The sleeper area was empty, blankets undisturbed, no movement. No shape, just darkness and shadow. I laughed shakily. "Okay," I said, "I get it, I'm tired." I reached back and flipped on the sleeper light. Still nothing. The voice spoke again, closer now. Coordinates confirmed, over. The light flickered once, then stayed on. I didn't shut it off. I didn't shut my eyes. I drove. The next hour passed in fragments. I remember checking mirrors constantly. I remember my heart never slowing. I remember the feeling of being tracked, not followed. The voice didn't speak again, but I knew it was there, waiting. I pulled into a truck stop around 2 a.m., desperate for noise, light, people. As I rolled to a stop, my CB crackled back to life on its own. Same channel, same whisper. Arrival logged, over. I killed the engine. The sudden silence rang in my ears. Drivers moved in the distance. Doors slammed. Engines idled. Normal sounds, safe sounds. I climbed out of the cab and stood in the cold night air, breathing hard, grounding myself in the physical world. Nothing followed me. I stayed there nearly an hour, drinking bad coffee, convincing myself it was stress, lack of sleep, imagination. Eventually, I went back to the truck. The sleeper light was off. I was certain I'd left it on. I climbed in and locked the doors. The CB was dark, powered down. I lay back in the seat staring at the ceiling. That's when I noticed something else. The seat behind me, the one separating the cab from the sleeper, was warm. Not residual warmth from the engine. Human warmth. Like someone had been sitting there, listening. I drove again at dawn. Daylight helped, but not enough. The voice didn't return that day, or the next. I almost convinced myself it was over. Then, 3 nights later, it came back. Different road, different state, same whisper. Coordinates updating, over. I didn't check the map this time. I didn't shut the CB off. I didn't respond. The voice filled the cab slowly, steadily, like water rising. Distance decreasing, over. My name again, my truck number again. Details no radio should have. And then something new. Behind the seat, over. I pulled over screaming and ran from the cab like a coward. Left the truck running, left everything. I stood shaking in the road until another driver stopped and asked if I was okay. I told him I heard voices. He looked at me carefully and said nothing. I quit long-haul driving 2 weeks later, sold my CB, took a warehouse job, sleep indoors now. But sometimes late at night, when the house is quiet and my phone loses signal, I swear I hear it. Not from a radio, not from electronics, from somewhere close. Somewhere behind me, still whispering, still logging, still saying, over, because whatever it is, isn't finished transmitting. Story 4. Truckers learn to read light. Not metaphorically, literally. You learn how headlights stretch, how brake lights bloom in fog, how sodium lamps bleach color out of everything they touch. Light tells you how fast you're moving, how tired you are, how close the morning is. That's why the rest stop felt wrong the moment I saw it. The light was there, but it wasn't doing anything. It was just before dawn, that dead hour when the night refuses to end but the dark starts thinning anyway. I'd been driving since late evening, pushing farther than I should have because traffic was light and the weather was clear. I told myself I'd stop at the next rest area. When the sign appeared, Rest Area 1 mile, I felt actual relief. My eyes burned, my shoulders ached. I needed a bathroom, coffee, 5 minutes where the road stopped moving beneath me. The exit ramp curved gently away from the highway, empty and clean, no ice, no debris. As I followed it, I noticed something strange, but didn't understand it yet. The lights ahead were very bright, too bright for a rest stop that early in the morning. Tall poles cast a wide wash of white light over the parking area. Vending machines glowed. Bathroom building lit from within. It looked open, normal. I pulled in slowly, scanning out of habit. There were trucks parked, 3 of them, lined up neatly near the far edge. No drivers walking around. No engines running. I parked near the building and shut off my engine. Silence settled instantly. Too clean. I opened my door. That's when I realized what my brain had been struggling to process since I'd arrived. There were no shadows, not beneath the trucks, not beneath the light poles, not beneath the signs. The bright white light hit everything evenly, flatly, like it had been painted on instead of shining down. I stepped out of my cab, looked down. My boots touched the pavement, but there was nothing beneath them, no outline, no darker shape, just uninterrupted concrete. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with temperature. I shifted my foot. Nothing changed. I waved my hand in front of my body. The motion was there, but no shadow followed it. The light ignored me. I stood very still, heart starting to race. Maybe it's the angle, I told myself. Bad lighting. Overcast sky. But the sky wasn't overcast. It was clear. Fading from black to gray. I looked around more carefully. The trucks parked nearby were solid, detailed, real. But they didn't touch the ground the way things should. They sat there like cutouts placed on top of a photograph. I took a step back toward my cab. Still no shadow. The vending machines hummed softly. I could hear the low vibration through the soles of my boots. I told myself I was overreacting. That exhaustion was playing tricks on me. I needed proof. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, pointed it at my hand. The beam lit my skin. Bright, clear. But the light passed, straight through the space beneath my fingers. No shadow, no occlusion, no darkness. It was like the light refused to acknowledge anything solid existed. My mouth went dry. I turned the flashlight toward the trucks. Same thing. Light hit metal, reflected. But nothing fell away into darkness. Everything was equally illuminated. Flat. Wrong. I shut the flashlight off. For a moment, I considered going inside the restroom building. The doors were lit. The windows glowed faintly from within. But the idea of stepping farther into this place made my stomach twist. I decided to leave. I turned toward my truck and froze. Because my truck was no longer casting a shadow either. I don't know why that detail scared me more than the rest. Maybe because it felt personal. Like something had changed after I arrived. Like the place had adjusted to include me. I climbed back into the cab quickly and slammed the door shut. The interior light came on. For a split second I thought, thank God, a shadow. But there wasn't one. The cab was bright, every surface evenly lit, no corners, no depth. I felt like I was sitting inside a photograph of my own truck. I turned the key, the engine hesitated. Once, twice, then started. Relief flooded me so hard I almost laughed. I didn't waste another second. I pulled out of the rest stop and back onto the ramp, tires humming reassuringly on real pavement. As soon as I merged onto the highway, my shadow snapped back into existence beneath the truck. Dark, defined, alive. I let out a shaky breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I drove another 20 miles before I slowed enough to think. What the hell was that? When daylight finally came, I convinced myself it had been fatigue, a trick of sodium lights and tired eyes. I would have left it there, except for one thing. When I checked my route later that day, something didn't add up. The rest stop wasn't on the map. Not marked as closed, not marked at all. I zoomed in, nothing. I searched the name listed on the sign I remembered passing. No results. That night, curiosity gnawed at me. I started digging, old dot listings, archived news articles, closed facilities. It took nearly an hour before I found it. A brief notice from years back. Rest area closed permanently. Reason: sight damage following multi-vehicle collision. I clicked deeper. Local news article: winter storm, black ice, chain reaction crash involving multiple semis and passenger vehicles, fire, explosions, several fatalities. The rest area had been used as an emergency staging ground that night, then closed. Then, according to records, demolished. The article included photos, burned-out trucks, twisted metal, floodlights illuminating a scene washed pale and flat by smoke and ash. I stared at one photo longer than the others. The lighting looked familiar. Everything evenly lit. No shadows. I closed my laptop slowly. I don't stop at rest areas before dawn anymore. I push through, find truck stops, anywhere, with depth, with corners, with darkness where darkness should be. Because I understand something now. That place wasn't abandoned. It was preserved, frozen in the moment when light erased everything else. And sometimes, just before morning, it turns the lights back on, waiting for drivers who are tired enough not to notice right away, waiting for someone to step into the light and forget what a shadow feels like. Story 5. There are places on a truck you're not supposed to see people. The cab, the ground, the fuel island. Sure. But the top of a trailer, especially at night, that's different. That's not a place for anyone to be unless something has already gone wrong. I didn't understand that fully until the night I saw her standing there. I was hauling a dry van load through a stretch of interstate that doesn't offer much after dark. Long gaps between exits, no towns, just rest areas spaced far enough apart that you plan around them whether you want to or not. It was late, close to 2 a.m., and I pulled into a quiet rest area to check my straps. The weather had been bad earlier, freezing rain that turned into sleet, then melted just enough to leave everything damp and slick. I didn't like trusting a load after that kind of shift, so I figured I'd take 5 minutes and be sure. The lot was mostly empty. A couple of trucks parked near the far edge, engines off, cabs dark. The overhead lights buzzed faintly, casting a dull yellow glow that didn't reach much beyond the pavement. I shut down my engine and climbed out, boots crunching softly on gravel and salt. The night felt heavy, not cold exactly, just thick, like the air had weight to it. Sound didn't carry well. My own movements felt too loud, out of place. I walked along the passenger side of my trailer, flashlight in hand, checking each strap by habit. Tug, glance, move on. Tug, glance, move on. I was halfway down when something made me look up. At first, I thought it was a shadow. Then my flashlight beam caught pale fabric. There was a woman standing on top of my trailer. She stood near the center, feet planted on the metal roof, toes bare against the steel. She wore a thin white nightgown that hung loosely from her shoulders, moving slightly in the breeze. Her hair fell forward, completely obscuring her face. She wasn't crouching. She wasn't swaying. She was standing perfectly upright, balanced as if the ground beneath her were solid and unmoving. My heart stuttered. I lowered the flashlight slightly, then raised it again, half expecting her to vanish. She didn't. "Hey!" I shouted. My voice echoed weakly, swallowed almost immediately by the night. She didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't turn her head. I stood there, staring up at her, mind scrambling for explanations that made sense. Sleepwalker, someone messing with me, a prank. But none of those explained how she'd gotten up there. "Miss!" I yelled again. "You need to get down from there." Nothing. No response, no movement. Just the faint rustle of her gown. A cold knot formed in my stomach. I backed up a step, giving myself a better angle. The light from the lot barely touched the roof of the trailer, leaving her mostly silhouetted against the dark sky. Her feet were dirty, wet. I could see it clearly now, darkened patches on the metal beneath her soles, like she'd stepped up there straight from somewhere damp. "Okay," I muttered. "Okay." I didn't want to climb up there. Every instinct screamed not to. But I couldn't leave her there either. I moved to the rear of the trailer and grabbed the ladder rungs, hesitating for just a second before climbing. The metal was cold under my gloves, slick with moisture. I climbed slowly, carefully, heart pounding hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. When I reached the top, I pulled myself up and scanned the roof. It was empty. No woman, no movement, no sound. Just the flat metal surface stretching end to end, faintly reflective under the distant lights. I stood there, breathing hard, flashlight sweeping back and forth. Nothing. I checked the edges, half expecting her to be crouched out of sight. Still nothing. The roof was completely bare. "No," I whispered, "that's not possible." I climbed back down, boots slipping slightly as I rushed. When my feet hit the ground, I circled the trailer quickly, scanning the area. No one was around. The other trucks were still dark and silent. The rest area building sat 100 yards away, windows black. No signs of movement anywhere. I stood there, heart racing, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. That exhaustion had filled in details that weren't real. That's when I noticed the footprints. They were on the roof. I climbed back up more carefully this time, flashlight trained on the metal. Bare footprints crossed the trailer roof. Wet. Perfectly shaped. Each toe clearly defined. They began near the center, where she had been standing, and moved toward the passenger side edge. Then they stopped. No scuff marks. No sign of slipping. Just clean impressions that ended abruptly, as if whoever made them had stepped off into the air. I stared at them for a long time. The night felt impossibly quiet up there. I didn't hear wind, didn't hear insects, didn't hear traffic. Just my own breathing and the faint hum of distant lights. I climbed down slowly, eyes never leaving the roof until I couldn't see it anymore. I got back into my cab and locked the doors. My hands were shaking. I started the engine and pulled out immediately, not bothering to check anything else. I didn't stop again that night. I convinced myself it was over. Just a hallucination, stress, fatigue, a trick of light and shadows. But I couldn't forget the footprints. The next morning, at a truck stop hundreds of miles away, I climbed up to check the roof again. The metal was dry, but faint outlines remained, smudged like residue left behind after water evaporates. Bare feet, leading nowhere. I reported nothing. Who would I tell? What would I say? That I saw a woman standing on my trailer who vanished when I climbed up to confront her. That she left footprints that didn't make sense. I drove that route dozens of times after. I never saw her again. But sometimes, late at night, when I stop to check my straps, I feel something before I see anything. A pressure, like eyes on my back, and I never look up first anymore. Because the worst part wasn't seeing her. It was realizing she'd been there long enough for her feet to leave marks, long enough to stand barefoot on cold metal, long enough to be real, and long enough to choose when to disappear. Some places on a truck aren't meant for people, and when you see someone there anyway, it means they didn't climb up. They arrived. Story 6. Empty highways are never truly empty. They feel that way because the human brain expects motion, landmarks, interruptions. When none of that appears for long enough, your sense of scale starts to collapse. Distance loses meaning. Time stretches thin. You stop measuring progress in miles and start measuring it in breaths, songs, engine cycles. That night, the road wasn't just empty, it was absent. I'd been running west for hours without seeing another set of headlights. No cars, no trucks, no distant glow of towns. Just asphalt, reflectors, and darkness pressed flat by the night. It was one of those interstates that barely feels real after midnight. No billboards, no rest areas, no exits for long stretches. The kind of road where you keep your speed steady because changing it feels pointless. The weather was clear, no fog, no wind worth mentioning. The sky overhead was a hard black bowl scattered with cold stars. My truck hummed smoothly beneath me, cruise control locked, engine note constant. I checked my mirrors out of a habit more than necessity. Nothing. I remember thinking how strange it felt to be the only moving thing left in the world. That's when the other truck appeared. Not in front of me, not behind me, beside me. It came into existence so gradually that I didn't notice it at first. Just a darker shape forming in my peripheral vision, moving at the same pace as me, occupying the lane to my left. I glanced over casually and felt my stomach drop. The semi was running no lights, no headlights, no side markers, no running lights. Just a massive, dark shape rolling through the night, perfectly aligned with my speed. That alone should have been impossible. At highway speed without lights, it should have been nearly invisible until too late. But I could see it clearly. Not because it was illuminated, but because it seemed to absorb the darkness around it. I eased off the accelerator slightly. The truck stayed with me. Exactly, perfectly. I accelerated back to speed, so did it. My pulse quickened. "Okay," I muttered. "Okay." Some drivers run dark illegally. I'd heard stories. Dangerous, stupid, but not unheard of. Still, most of them flick lights on the second they realize someone's noticed. This one didn't. I looked over again, forcing myself to take in details. The trailer was blackened, uneven in color, like soot had permanently stained the metal. The cab was worse. Patchy, warped, its surface dull and blistered as if exposed to extreme heat long ago. Then I saw the windshield. Or what used to be the windshield. The glass was gone, not shattered, missing. The interior of the cab was visible, and it was burned. Completely charred. The steering wheel was warped and blackened, its rims split open. The dashboard looked melted, sagging inward. The seats were skeletal frames wrapped in scorched remains of fabric. There was no driver, no movement, no hands on the wheel. Yet the truck held its lane flawlessly. My mouth went dry. I checked my speed, exactly 65. I nudged it up to 67. The burned truck adjusted instantly. No lag, no correction, just matched me. I slowed to 62. So did it. The precision was unsettling. No human driver could match speed that cleanly without fluctuation. I turned my head fully now, staring. The interior was dead. No glow from gauges, no flicker of light. Just darkness and ruin, and still. The truck rolled on. I told myself not to panic. Panic makes you stupid. I reached for the radio, flicking through channels, desperate to hear another human voice. Static, more static than nothing. I keyed the mic anyway. "Any driver copy?" I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Got an unlit semi pacing me westbound. Anyone else see this?" No response. The burned truck drifted closer. Not into my lane. Just enough that I could see finer details. The metal smelled wrong. I know that sounds strange. How can you smell another vehicle while driving at speed? But I swear I could smell it through the cab vents. Burned oil, ash, something sweet and rotten underneath. Like old smoke soaked into fabric for decades. I rolled up my window even though it was already closed. The smell didn't change. I tried to slow dramatically. easing off the throttle to see if it would pass. It didn't. It slowed with me, stayed right there, matching, waiting. I was aware then of how quiet everything had become. No wind noise, no tire hiss. Even my engine sounded muffled, distant, like it was running underwater. I checked my mirrors again. The road behind me was empty. Ahead, the interstate stretched on, featureless and dark. No exits, no signs, just reflectors ticking by like a heartbeat. I looked back at the burned cab, and that's when I noticed something else. The steering wheel was turning, not smoothly, not continuously. It jerked in small, deliberate increments, correcting the truck's alignment in response to the road. Whatever was controlling it was inside, not physically but functionally. I whispered, "No." The burned truck began to accelerate, not suddenly, gradually. Its nose edged ahead of mine, inch by inch, like it wanted me to follow. I didn't. I held my speed. The truck crept forward until its trailer lined up with my cab. As it passed, I saw the side of the trailer clearly for the first time. The paint was bubbled and peeled, and burned into the metal, faint but unmistakable, was a company logo. One I recognized, because I'd seen it in old training materials. A carrier that went out of business decades ago. I felt cold all over. The burned truck moved fully ahead of me now, still no lights, still silent. Then it accelerated harder, pulled away. The darkness swallowed it gradually, the outline thinning until it was nothing more than a distortion in the night. Then, gone. No fade, no distance, just absent. The road returned to normal instantly. Engine noise rushed back. Wind returned. My headlights felt brighter. I was alone again. I pulled over at the next exit and sat there shaking for a long time, hands locked around the wheel. I didn't sleep when I stopped later that morning. Instead, I researched. I knew the stretch of road. I knew the mile markers. I remembered exactly where it had happened. Highway incident logs aren't public-facing, but truckers talk. Forums exist. Old accident reports get archived. It took hours, but I found it. A fatal semi-fire, decades earlier, late at night. Same stretch of interstate. Electrical failure led to a cab fire while the truck was at speed. The driver never made it out. The rig burned so hot the interior was destroyed before it rolled to a stop. Eyewitnesses said the truck continued down the road uncontrolled for nearly a mile before crashing. No lights, just a burning shape moving through the dark. The company logo matched. I shut my laptop slowly. I don't drive empty interstates at night anymore if I can help it. I adjust routes, delay hauls, stop early, because I understand something now. That truck didn't appear to scare me. It didn't try to crash me. It didn't block me or chase me. It matched my speed because that's what it remembered doing. Rolling, burning, moving forward while the world passed by. And sometimes, when the road is empty enough and the night quiet enough, it does it again. Not to kill, not to warn, just to keep driving until someone notices. Story 7. Sleeping in a truck teaches you how thin walls really are. You can feel vibrations through them. Wind, passing traffic, the shudder of another rig idling too close. You learn what belongs and what doesn't. After enough nights, your body wakes you up before your brain catches on when something is wrong. That night, I woke up because of the knock. I'd pulled into a quiet gravel pull-off just before midnight. Not a rest area, not a truck stop. Just a wide shoulder carved out near a long stretch of state highway. No lights except my own, no buildings, no other trucks. The kind of place you choose when you want silence. I shut down, drew the curtains, and crawled into the sleeper. The heater hummed softly. Outside, the night was still enough that I could hear distant wind moving through grass. I fell asleep quickly. I woke to a sound so gentle it almost blended into a dream. Knock, not loud, not sharp. A soft, deliberate tap. 3 times, evenly spaced. I opened my eyes, heart already beating faster. Truckers hear noises all the time. Branches, debris, animals brushing the trailer. But this wasn't scraping or thumping. It was polite, intentional. The knock came from the sleeper wall right behind my head. I lay still, listening. Nothing followed, no footsteps, no rustling outside, just silence. I checked the time. 2:14 a.m. I told myself it had been thermal expansion, metal shifting as the temperature dropped. Happens all the time. I closed my eyes, knock, same rhythm, same place. I sat up slowly, every nerve alert. "Hello?" I said quietly. No answer. I held my breath, then knock, 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 not harder, just closer. Right against the wall, inches from where my shoulder pressed the mattress. I swung my legs over the edge of the sleeper and sat there, frozen. The cab felt suddenly very small. I reached for the cab light and flicked it on. The sleeper wall was bare, upholstery intact, no dents, no movement. The knocking stopped. I waited a full minute before standing, pulled back the curtain and looked out the side window. The pull-off was empty. No headlights, no silhouettes. Nothing but my truck and darkness. I locked the doors again, even though they already were. Then I climbed back into the sleeper, telling myself not to be stupid. That's when the knocking moved. Knock. This time, it came from the side panel of the sleeper, near the small storage compartment. 1 knock. Pause. 2 more. My stomach dropped. Sound travels strangely in a truck, but this was precise. It wasn't echoing. It wasn't shifting randomly. It was relocating. "Cut it out," I said, louder now. "I know someone's out there." Silence. Then, knock. Above me, from the roof, directly overhead. I stared upward, pulse roaring in my ears. The roof didn't flex, didn't creak, just absorbed the sound as if something had tapped it from the inside. That thought made my skin crawl. I slid out of the sleeper and moved into the driver's seat, turning on all the interior lights at once. The cab filled with harsh brightness. I sat there breathing hard, eyes flicking to every surface. Nothing happened. For a moment I almost laughed. Then the knock came again. Behind me, from the rear wall, the side that separated the cab from the trailer. Slow, measured, 3 taps. I stood up so fast I nearly hit my head. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." That wall was solid, reinforced. No access from the cab side. Nothing behind it except cargo and insulation. I grabbed my flashlight and pressed it against the wall, half expecting to see something move beneath the lining. Nothing. The knock came again. Harder this time. Not aggressive, just firmer. Like whoever or whatever was knocking wanted to be sure I understood where it was and where it wasn't. It wasn't outside the truck, it was inside it. I didn't open the trailer. I thought about it, just for a second. Then sanity kicked in. You don't open your trailer alone in the middle of nowhere at night. You don't investigate sounds coming from sealed spaces. You don't give things like this opportunities. I climbed back into the driver's seat and started the engine. The truck roared to life. The knock stopped immediately. Relief hit me so hard my vision blurred. "Okay," I said shakily. "Okay, we're leaving." I pulled back onto the highway, tires crunching gravel before settling into asphalt. For a while, everything felt normal again. Engine steady, road stretching ahead. The cab lights off, sleeper dark behind me. I started to calm down. That's when I heard it again. Knock, behind my seat, 1 tap. I jerked my head around. The sleeper curtain hung still. Nothing moved, then knock knock from the same spot. Closer now, more insistent. The truck was moving at 60 miles an hour. Nothing should have been able to knock like that. Especially not from inside. "Stop," I said, voice cracking. "Just stop." The knocking didn't respond. It continued, not constantly. Just often enough to make sure I couldn't relax, every few minutes, from different panels. Sleeper wall, roof, rear wall, never outside, always inside, always close. I drove for nearly an hour like that, white-knuckled, heart racing, afraid to slow down, afraid to stop. Eventually, exhaustion and fear blended into something numb. The knocking faded, then stopped altogether. I didn't slow until the sky began to lighten. Morning came pale and gray. I pulled into a truck stop as soon as I saw one and parked in full daylight, surrounded by other rigs, people walking around, engines starting and stopping. The normalcy felt unreal. I climbed out and did a full inspection. Cab first, no damage, no marks, nothing out of place. Then the trailer. I unlocked the doors slowly, half expecting something to spill out. They opened normally. The cargo was intact, undisturbed. I stepped inside the trailer with my flashlight. At first, I saw nothing unusual. Then, I noticed the lining. On the inside walls, beneath the insulation, were handprints, not smudges, not dirt, impressions, pressed outward, as if someone inside the wall had pushed their hands through the lining and held them there. Each print was perfectly shaped. 5 fingers, a palm, dozens of them, scattered along the walls, at shoulder height, at chest height, at head height, all pushing toward the cargo space, none pulling in. I backed out slowly, heart pounding all over again. The trailer walls were sealed, no access points, no gaps, nothing that should allow a person to be inside them. I closed the doors and locked them. I reported nothing. I finished the run. But I don't sleep in my truck anymore unless I absolutely have to, and when I do, I don't turn off the cab lights. Because I learned something that night. Some things don't knock to get in. They knock to let you know. They already are. Story 8. Way stations aren't supposed to feel personal. They're bureaucratic places. Concrete, steel, sensors, and cameras. Even when they're open, they feel empty, like they exist for rules instead of people. At night, when most of them are closed, they feel abandoned in a way that's hard to explain, like someone stepped away and never came back. That night, the scale house felt awake, and it knew me. I was running late through a rural stretch of highway just after 1 a.m., the kind of place where exits are miles apart and towns or names you barely recognize. I wasn't tired enough to stop, not alert enough to enjoy the drive, just floating in that numb middle state truckers know too well. That's when I saw the sign. Way Station Open. The amber lights were on. That alone made me slow. This station was almost always closed at night. I'd passed it dozens of times on similar runs and never once been pulled in after dark. Most drivers I knew joked that it was open on paper only, but the sign was lit. Rules are rules. I signaled and pulled off the highway, tires humming over the ramp, my cab lights reflecting off concrete barriers that funneled me toward the scale. Everything looked normal, too normal. The scale pad lights were on. The small building beside it glowed faintly through narrow windows. No other trucks idled nearby, no dot vehicles parked out front. Just me. I rolled onto the scale slowly and stopped when the indicator told me to. The engine idled. I waited. Usually you hear something. A voice over the intercom, a door opening, footsteps. Nothing happened. I sat there longer than felt comfortable, eyes drifting to the mirrors, then back to the building. That's when I noticed movement. A small shape stood near the door of the scale house. At first, I thought it was a trick of light, a reflection maybe. But as my eyes adjusted, the shape sharpened. It was a child, a little boy. He stood barefoot on the concrete, toes pale against the cold surface. He wore shorts and a thin sweatshirt, both too light for the night air. His arms hung at his sides, shoulders slightly hunched like he was trying to make himself smaller. He was shivering. My stomach tightened instantly. Kids don't belong at way stations, not ever. I killed the engine and cracked my door open. "Hey," I called gently. "You okay, buddy?" He looked up at me. His face was pale, lips slightly blue, eyes dark and far too serious for someone his age. No fear, no confusion. Just a calm that didn't match his situation. He took a step closer to my truck. "My dad drives your truck," he said. The words hit me wrong immediately. Not scared, not pleading, just stated. "I don't think so," I said carefully, climbing down from the cab. "Are you lost?" He shook his head slowly. "My dad drives your truck," he repeated and pointed, straight at my rig. My chest went cold. "I don't have kids," I said before I could stop myself. The boy didn't react, didn't argue, didn't look confused. He just watched me, head tilted slightly to one side. "Can I get in?" he asked. "It's cold." I glanced around instinctively. The highway behind me was empty. No cars, no headlights, no sound, but the wind moving through grass. "Where's your dad?" I asked. The boy's eyes shifted briefly toward the scale house. "Inside," he said. Something about that answer made my skin crawl. I took a step toward the building, intending to knock, to find an officer, to call someone, anyone. "Stay right there," I told the boy. He nodded. I walked up to the scale house door and knocked. No response. I tried the handle, locked. I pressed my face to the glass and peered inside. The interior lights were on, but the room was empty. No desk clutter, no paperwork, no coffee cups. Just a clean, unused space like it had been staged and abandoned. I turned back toward the scale pad. The boy was gone. My heart jumped into my throat. "Hey!" I called, panic creeping in. "Hey, where did you go?" I jogged back toward my truck, scanning the area. Nothing. No small footprints in the dust. No movement near the building. No place he could have gone without me seeing. I climbed back into my cab quickly, locked the doors and sat there breathing hard. "You're tired," I told myself. You imagined it. But my hands were shaking. I looked down at the scale indicator. It still showed my weight. I waited. Nothing changed. No voice, no signal to pull forward. After another minute, I decided to leave. Rules be damned. I started the engine and eased off the scale. As my trailer cleared the pad, I glanced in the mirror for just a second. I thought I saw a small hand pressed against the side of my trailer. Then it was gone. I didn't stop until I hit a truck stop nearly 40 miles later. Under bright lights surrounded by people, I finally felt my heart slow. I told myself I'd ask about the way station in the morning. Maybe there'd been some emergency. Maybe a worker's kid had wandered around. Still, the boy's words replayed in my head. "My dad drives your truck." Sleep didn't come easily. The next day, curiosity got the better of me. I called the state DOT office during a break and asked about the station. There was a pause on the line. "That way station's been closed overnight for years," the woman said. "We don't staff it after 6 p.m. "But the sign was lit," I said. "The scale was active." "That's not possible," she replied. "No vehicles were logged there last night." My stomach sank. "Are you sure?" I asked. "I'm looking at the records now," she said. "No stops, no weigh-ins, nothing." I hesitated. "What about anyone else being there?" I asked carefully. "A child?" Silence, then more quietly, "Why do you ask?" I didn't answer directly. She sighed. "Years ago," she said, "there was an incident. A driver pulled onto that scale late at night when it was supposed to be closed. His son was with him. Kid wasn't supposed to be in the cab." My grip tightened on the phone. "There was an accident," she continued. "The boy wandered out while the truck was being weighed. Another rig came through too fast. He didn't survive." I swallowed hard. "What happened to the driver?" I asked. Another pause. "He never drove again," she said. "Sold the truck, left the industry." I thanked her and hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at my rig through the windshield. I didn't pass that weigh station again for months. When I finally did, I stayed on the highway. The sign was dark, the ramp empty, the building unlit, just concrete and shadow. But as I passed, I saw something that made my hands tighten on the wheel. On the scale pad, just one. A small footprint, bare, pressed into the dust, facing the road, waiting. I don't stop at weigh stations late at night anymore unless I'm absolutely forced to. And when I see a sign light up unexpectedly, I keep driving. Because some places don't close when the doors lock. Some places remember. And sometimes they open again. Just long enough for someone to be recognized by a child who's still waiting for his dad to come back to the truck. Story 9. Missing an exit isn't scary. It's annoying, inconvenient. Something you curse about and correct at the next ramp. Truckers miss exits all the time. GPS lag, fatigue, construction, a moment's distraction. Roads forgive mistakes like that. This one didn't. It was close to 3 a.m., that dead slice of night when even your thoughts feel slowed down. I'd been driving since early evening, making good time, fighting off the dull ache behind my eyes that meant I should stop soon. I was waiting for exit 142. I knew it well. Small town, reliable gas station, decent coffee. I'd planned to pull in, fuel up, grab something hot, then finish the run. The sign appeared in my headlights. Exit 142, services. I eased toward the right lane. That's when a car merged in front of me suddenly. Headlights flaring bright in my mirrors. Not close enough to force me to brake, but close enough to make me hesitate. By the time I corrected and signaled again, I was past the ramp. "Damn it," I muttered. "No big deal. I'd take the next exit." The next sign came up a few miles later. Different number, different town name. I took it without thinking, more annoyed than tired now. The ramp curved gently down, familiar in a way I didn't immediately question. Trees pressed close on both sides, dark and featureless. At the bottom of the ramp, the road straightened, and there it was, the gas station. Same layout, same canopy, same flickering fluorescent light over pump number 3. Same faded banner advertising coffee that had probably been cheap a decade ago. I slowed instinctively. "That's weird," I said. Maybe this town had the same chain, same design. Companies did that. I pulled in anyway. The lot was empty. No cars, no other trucks, just my rig and the hum of lights. I parked and went inside. The bell over the door chimed. The clerk looked up. Middle-aged man. Thinning hair, same red vest, same name tag. "Night," he said. "Long drive?" I hesitated. "Yeah," I replied slowly. He nodded. "Fuel's steady tonight, coffee's fresh." The exact words I'd heard 100 times before. I paid, grabbed a cup, and headed back out, unsettled but not frightened yet. Just confused. Back on the highway, I shook it off. Coincidence, fatigue, my brain filling in patterns. 10 minutes later, I missed exit 142 again. I stared at the receding sign in my mirror, heart thudding. "No," I said out loud. "No, I was watching." I had been watching. There was no merging car this time, no distraction. I simply didn't take it. My foot never moved, my hands never turned the wheel, like the decision had been skipped. I took the next exit harder this time, almost aggressively, determined not to let whatever was happening continue. The ramp curved down, trees, dark, and the gas station waited at the bottom, same lights, same pumps, same banner. I slowed to a stop at the edge of the lot, pulse racing. "You've got to be kidding me." I pulled in again. Inside, the clerk looked up and smiled. "Back already?" he said. "Forget something?" My skin prickled. "You just saw me," I said. He blinked. "I don't think so." "You rang me up," I insisted, 10 minutes ago. He tilted his head slightly, studying me. "You look tired," he said gently. "Happens out here." I backed away slowly, coffee forgotten, and left without another word. The third time, I didn't miss the exit. I was gripping the wheel so hard my hands hurt. I slowed early, signaled, moved over well in advance. The ramp loomed ahead, and then the road continued straight. The exit simply wasn't there. No ramp, no curve, just highway. I felt something break inside my chest. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." I drove on in a daze until the next exit appeared. I took it. I already knew what would be there. The gas station lights glowed like a wound in the darkness. I parked and sat in the cab for a long time, breathing shallowly, afraid to move. Finally, I forced myself inside. The clerk didn't smile this time. He watched me approach the counter, eyes sad, almost apologetic. "You're still missing it," he said quietly. "What?" I asked. He leaned forward slightly, lowering his voice. "You died here once," he whispered. "You keep missing it." My vision tunneled. "That's not funny," I said, though my voice barely worked. He shook his head. "It's not a joke." "What do you mean I died?" He glanced toward the door, then back at me. "Late night," he said. "Same stretch of road, you nodded off, missed the exit, never slowed down." I tried to speak, no sound came out. "You're close every time," he continued softly, "but you keep going past." The lights flickered. The hum of the refrigerators deepened into something almost like a breath. "Where am I supposed to go?" I asked. The clerk met my eyes. "You have to stop where it happened." The floor seemed to tilt. "I don't remember crashing," I said. He nodded slowly. "That's the problem." The room stretched. The edges darkened. The last thing I heard was the bell over the door ringing, even though I hadn't moved. I woke to sunlight, bright, real. My truck was parked safely on the shoulder miles down the road, hazard lights blinking. Engine off. My head throbbed. My phone buzzed with missed notifications. I checked the dash cam. The footage showed me pulling over, then nothing. 46 minutes passed with no movement, no driving, no engine start, just me sitting there, motionless. I don't take exit 142 anymore. I don't even look at it. Because sometimes late at night when I'm tired enough, I see the gas station lights in the distance where they don't belong. And I know if I pull in again, someone will be waiting to tell me what I already forgot about the place I was supposed to stop. Story 10. If you've been trucking long enough, you learn to trust records more than memory. Memory lies, fatigue blurs edges, hours melt together. But logbooks, especially digital ones, don't lie. They're exact, brutal. Every mile, every stop, every minute accounted for. They don't care how tired you were or how sure you felt. That's why what I found in mine scared me more than anything I've seen on the road. Because the logbook said I was still driving. And I was asleep. I'd been hauling freight for nearly 30 years when it happened, long enough that nothing about the job surprised me anymore. I ran clean, no violations, no sketchy shortcuts. My record mattered to me. That night, I parked at a quiet rest area just before 11 p.m. The place was nearly empty. 2 other trucks spaced far apart, restrooms closed for cleaning, vending machines humming softly in the distance. I shut down, set the brakes, and double-checked my ELD like I always did. Status: off duty. Location: correct time remaining, logged accurately. Everything looked clean. I locked the cab, drew the curtains, and crawled into the sleeper. I remember falling asleep quickly. No strange noises, no dreams I can recall. Just darkness and the low hum of the heater. When I woke up, the sky was already light. That alone wasn't unusual. I'd slept hard. What was unusual was the alert waiting on my dash. Log discrepancy detected. My stomach tightened immediately. I climbed into the driver's seat and pulled up the logbook. The screen loaded slowly. Then I saw it. Between 11:43 p.m. and 4:12 a.m., my status was marked as driving. Nearly 4.5 hours, logged cleanly. No interruptions, no sudden stops, route mapped. Speed averaged, mileage recorded. I stared at it, certain I was misunderstanding something. "No," I whispered, "that's not possible." I checked the GPS history. The truck hadn't moved, not an inch. Coordinates stayed locked to the rest area all night. I scrolled down to the notes field. There was an entry. Not system-generated, typed, still running the route, still watching. The timestamp was 2:17 a.m. I felt cold all over. My first thought was hacking. Some glitch, some software issue. Maybe someone had accessed the system remotely. I called company support. They were confused but calm, used to drivers calling in with complaints and paranoia. They checked the back-end logs. Everything matched what I saw. No GPS movement, the tech said. But the ELD shows driving input. "That's impossible," I said. I was asleep. There was a pause. "Sir," he said carefully, "is there any chance someone else had access to the cab?" "No," I snapped. The doors were locked. I was alone. Another pause. "Have you ever seen entries like this before?" "No." He cleared his throat. "We'll flag it as an anomaly. You won't be penalized." "What about the note?" I asked. "What note?" I read it to him. Silence. "It doesn't appear in our system," he said finally. My blood ran cold. "It's on my screen," I said, "right now." "We're not seeing it on our end," he replied. "Could be a local display error." I hung up, not reassured at all. I drove that day on autopilot, checking the logbook obsessively at every stop. Nothing else appeared. No new entries. No strange notes. By evening, I'd almost convinced myself it had been a one-off glitch. That night, I parked at a truck stop just off the interstate. Busy, well-lit, people everywhere. I left the curtains open, didn't sleep much. In the morning, I checked the logbook again. Another entry, different time, same handwriting style, same calm phrasing. "You always stop here." Timestamped 1:06 a.m. I hadn't touched the system. I felt like I was being watched through the screen. I started documenting everything. Screenshots, photos of the dash, video recordings of me powering down and going to sleep. I wanted proof. For myself, if nothing else. The third night, the entry appeared while I was awake. I was sitting in the driver's seat, engine off, scrolling through my phone. The logbook refreshed on its own. A new line appeared, still on schedule. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. "No," I said out loud. "No, you're not real." The words didn't change. The logbook didn't flicker. It just accepted them. I didn't sleep at all that night. I started to notice patterns. The entries always appeared between 1:00 and 3:00 a.m. Always when the truck was stationary. Always in places I stopped regularly. It knew my routes, my habits. The logbook began to reflect trips I hadn't taken, turns I didn't remember, stops I never made. But the GPS never showed movement. It was like two versions of the truck existed simultaneously. One parked, one still running. I began to dread checking the logbook, because every time I did, it felt like it was waiting for me. The final entry was the one that broke me. I'd parked at home, my driveway. Truck shut down for the weekend. I was inside, showered, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee when my phone buzzed. ELD alert. I opened the app with shaking hands. New entry, you don't need it anymore. I'll keep the hours. Time-stamped 2:33 a.m. Location, my address. I sold the truck 3 days later. Didn't argue about price. Didn't explain. Just signed the paperwork and walked away. For the first time in decades, I slept without an engine humming nearby. A month passed, then 2. I started to relax. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Sir," a man said hesitantly, "you used to own a Freightliner with unit number 4832? My stomach dropped. "Yes," I said. "Why?" "I just bought it," he said. "Listen, I don't want to sound crazy." I closed my eyes. "Check your logbook," I said quietly. There was a pause. "There's an entry here," he said slowly. "It says..." "I know," I interrupted. "What does it say?" He swallowed. Same route. New hands, still watching. I hung up. I don't drive anymore. I don't use GPS. I don't track my hours. But sometimes, late at night, when I can't sleep, I check the time. And I wonder if something is still out there, keeping the log, running the route, waiting for another truck to call home. Those were 10 very scary true trucker horror stories. Experiences from drivers who learned the road doesn't forgive, doesn't forget, and never truly empties. Which story stayed with you the longest? Tell me in the comments. And remember, when you're driving alone at night and feel like someone's sitting beside you, don't look. Some passengers never leave. This is Mr. Darkveil Horror Stories, signing off. Keep your eyes on the road and your doors locked.